The forest was burning. Snow fell over smoldering trees, turning red as it touched the ground. The air reeked of gunpowder and blood. From the smoke, a single figure stood, a small, slender man in a torn U.S. uniform, gripping a machine gun on a burning tank destroyer. German troops were closing in. Bullets whistled through the cold air. The metal beneath him was melting, flames licking at his boots, but he didn't move. He kept firing, alone. For over an hour, the young soldier held back wave after wave of enemy attacks. When the smoke cleared, 50 enemy soldiers lay dead. That man's name was Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier in history. But his legend wasn't born that day. It began long before in the dry, unforgiving fields of Hunt County, Texas, where hunger was a daily battle and survival was already a war. The poor boy of Texas. Audie Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, into poverty so deep that even hope seemed to have left. His father, Emmett Murphy, drifted between jobs. His mother, Josie, struggled to feed 12 children. Their small shack stood on dusty ground, surrounded by parched fields and broken fences. From the moment he could walk, Audie worked, picking cotton, chopping wood, hunting rabbits. He learned how to shoot before he could read. His rifle was more than a tool, it was a lifeline. Each bullet meant food for his family. Audie rarely smiled. His childhood was a blur of exhaustion and hunger. When his father abandoned the family, he became the man of the house, though he was just a boy. His mother was his anchor, the only warmth in that hard world, but even she couldn't escape the weight of life. When she died in 1941, Audie didn't cry. He just stood there, silent, still, as if something inside him had turned to stone. He dropped out of school in the 5th grade. With no one left to guide him and nothing left to lose, he turned his eyes toward a new kind of war, one that had just begun. The boy who wanted to fight. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the nation rose in fury. So did Audie. He tried to enlist in the Marines, rejected for being too small. He tried the Navy, turned down again. Even the paratroopers refused him. He was just 17, 5'5", 110 pounds. But what he lacked in size, he made up for in stubborn fire. He forged his birth certificate, lied about his age, and finally joined the U.S. Army. It was the first time in his life anyone had said yes. At Camp Walters, Texas, he proved himself again and again. His aim was precise, his endurance unmatched. Drill sergeants noticed the quiet kid who never complained. He didn't brag, didn't joke. He just worked silently, relentlessly. One officer said, "There's something dangerous in that boy's eyes. Not hatred, but determination." By 1943, Murphy was shipped overseas. His destination, Sicily. The first step into hell. The baptism of fire. The Mediterranean sun was brutal, but not as harsh as the war. When the landing craft hit the shore, bullets greeted them. The air filled with screams and sand. Audie hit the ground running and never stopped. He fought through Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome. The names blurred into pain and exhaustion. He saw men he laughed with at breakfast torn apart by noon. He was promoted quickly from private to sergeant because he simply refused to die. In one battle near the Volturno River, his unit was ambushed. Audie crawled forward under machine gun fire, took out 2 enemy gunners with grenades, and kept advancing until the line broke. He didn't wait for orders. He acted on instinct. The officers began to trust him. The soldiers began to follow him. He was small, quiet, and young, But when the shooting started, everyone looked to him. That was leadership, earned not by rank, but by survival. The man who never gave up. By the summer of 1944, Murphy and his men landed in southern France during Operation Dragoon. They marched through vineyards and lavender fields until gunfire shattered the calm. At Ramatuelle, his platoon was pinned down by machine gun nests hidden among the rocks. While others took cover, Audie crawled alone toward the enemy. He moved through dust and smoke, tossing grenades, shooting with deadly precision. When the firing stopped, 12 enemy soldiers lay dead, and his men could finally advance. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for that action, but medals meant little to him. He only said, "They were trying to kill my friends. I just did what I had to do." The war hardened him. His baby face grew gaunt, his eyes older than his years. Each victory came at the price of another friend buried in foreign soil, and yet he kept fighting. It's the Fire of Holtzwihr, January 26, 1945. Holtzwihr, France. The forest was frozen solid. Murphy's company faced 6 German tanks and more than 200 infantry soldiers. They had almost no ammunition left. Murphy ordered his men to fall back, but he stayed. He climbed onto a burning tank destroyer, grabbed the .50 caliber machine gun, and opened fire. The scene was madness. Flames roared beneath him. Snow hissed as it melted. Bullets ripped through his clothes, grazing his legs, but he didn't stop. He called artillery on his own position, shouting coordinates through the radio while firing at the advancing enemy. For over an hour, he stood alone, fighting off the entire assault. When his ammo finally ran dry, he limped back to his men and led a counterattack that pushed the Germans into retreat. When reporters later asked him how he did it, he said softly, "I was scared, but I had to stay. They would have killed us all." For that day, Audie Murphy received the Medal of Honor in eternal respect from soldiers around the world. The war that never ended when the guns finally fell silent in 1945, Murphy returned home to parades, applause, and cameras. But inside, he was still on the battlefield. He woke at night drenched in sweat, reaching for a rifle that wasn't there. Fireworks sounded like artillery. Thunderstorms sent him diving for cover. Doctors called it battle fatigue. Today, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. He couldn't sleep, so he read. He couldn't talk about it, so he wrote. His autobiography, To Hell and Back, became a bestseller, and later a Hollywood film where he played himself. But filming the battles again broke something in him. He later said, "Reliving it was worse than living it." The hero and the haunting. In public, he was a movie star, handsome, calm, smiling for the cameras. In private, he was haunted. He slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. He had nightmares of his fallen friends calling his name. He suffered in silence because in those days, heroes weren't allowed to be broken. Yet he found purpose again, fighting not for medals, but for his fellow veterans. He spoke out for better treatment of soldiers suffering from trauma, long before America understood what war did to the mind. He said, "The real heroes are the ones who didn't come back." That was who Audie Murphy truly was, a man who carried the burden of survival as heavily as his medals. Final flight. On May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a small private plane for a business trip. The weather turned against him. Thick fog rolled over the Appalachian Mountains, swallowing the aircraft whole. Moments later, it vanished from radar. When search teams found the wreckage, there were no survivors, Audie Murphy was 45 years old. He was laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery, his grave one of the most visited in America. Visitors still leave coins on his stone, a tradition of respect for fallen warriors. Audie Murphy's life is not just a war story. It is the story of what courage costs and what it gives back. He came from nothing. He faced fear every day. He won battles against men and then against his own memories. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It is standing your ground in spite of it. And sometimes the smallest man on the battlefield carries the biggest heart. He was more than a soldier. He was a symbol of endurance, humility, and the silent pain behind heroism. The boy from Texas who stood alone on a burning tank destroyer didn't fight for glory. He fought because someone had to, and that perhaps is what makes him a legend.